Welcome to 144,000teachers.org, the first fruits unto God and to the Lamb. Looking in the menu at section City Country, we want to guide you towards the agriculture, the ABC of education and survival, and we are looking at day 10. And this is to look at agriculture and a special way of doing agriculture, which is called a garden covering, a regenerative organic garden, the covering. And we will be looking at the videos of this particular gentleman here, which is a gardener and an arborist. And he has marvelous ideas on how to produce a very, very effective way of gardening, which is called the covering. As we look at the agenda for day number 10, we are looking as well at showing you why we're so fond about this idea of covering. In the Word of God, in Exodus chapter 40, verse 38, the concept of covering is presented. For the cloud of the Lord was upon the tabernacle by day, and fire was on it by night, in the sight of all the house of Israel throughout all their journeys. And the tabernacle we know had 4 coverings, according to Exodus chapter 36, verses 8 to 19. This is a unique agenda on repairing the breach in agriculture through a concept of a garden covering. Back to Eden gardening interview and tour with Paul Gautschi. Back to Eden gardening is the revolutionary gardening method pioneered by American gardener and arborist Paul Gautschi. Paul has helped millions of home gardeners grow more fresh produce at home with less work and without using artificial fertilizers and pesticides. Paul practices a no-dig gardening technique that installs wood chips on the surface of the soil. Back to Eden gardening regenerates soil, conserves water, restores soil biodiversity while practicing organic gardening principles and sustainable permaculture methods for growing food. Paul answers the most frequently asked question about how to start a Back to Eden garden and successfully grow food in a vegetable garden and fruit orchard. Gardeners will learn Paul Gautschi answers to the most common Back to Eden gardening problems, mistakes, criticisms, and myths. We encourage you in the first section to listen to this 1 hour and 43 minutes video, which is a real good introduction of Paul Gautschi principle of a garden covering, but it also is so interesting because he's a Christian and everything he speaks about, he's able to relate it to the Bible, specifically regarding the character of God. And how agriculture also demonstrates the formation of character in human being. Make sure to watch attentively in this particular video, section 1 hour, 2 minutes and 54 seconds to section 1 hour, 18 minutes and 54 seconds. We have also a few pictures below to show you the garden with the covering. Pay attention because people have believed that he teaches only wood chips, but it is not true. You will see what he covers in order to make a beautiful garden. As you start viewing Paul Gautschi's video, you will see additional videos which you will not want to miss. And if you want to learn more about his work, you can contact this website here, and there is a contact where you can actually send an email and they will answer you back. In section number 2, we are offering another video which is divided in different sections, and the first one being the covering. And you can see the timing here. The covering starts right away at the beginning of the video and it extends to the next section. And questions like these are answered. What material do you recommend as a covering? What type of wood chips do you suggest not to use? Do you recommend using cedar for wood chips? What have you learned about using hay and straw? How do you pick out a good source of wood chips? How do you recommend preparing the ground? How thick do you apply the covering? Do you recommend eliminating grass and weeds? When do you recommend applying a covering? What if I do not have enough space for a garden? What if I do not have enough sunlight for a garden? So all of these questions he does answers beautifully in this particular series of video here. And whatever videos you watch of his, he always goes over those questions in a different way, but he always answers those questions very faithfully. In that particular video here, the link we have given you, you will see in section number 2, which starts at about 7 minutes and 27 seconds, where he answered this question. Do you suggest tilling to prepare the soil? Where do you suggest planting in the wood chips? How often do you apply a new layer of wood chips? Do you thin your vegetables that grow in wood chips? Do the wood chip provide good insulation? Section number 3 of the same video, fertilization, which starts at 10 minutes and 2 seconds. Do wood chips ties up nitrogen? Do you recommend animal manures as fertilizer? What type of organic fertilizers do you recommend? Number 4, irrigation, which starts at 12 minutes and 3 seconds. How much do you use water? Is moisture a problem with other coverings? Is mold a problem in wood chip? 5th section, weed control, starting at 13 minutes and 16 seconds. How do you recommend eliminating grass and weeds? How do you manage tenacious weeds like thistles? 6th section, which starts at 14 minutes and 19 seconds. How do you safely deal with insect problems? How do you protect your fruit trees from birds damage? That's a good question. Section number 7, crop rotation, starts at 16 minutes, 16 seconds. Why do you not rotate your crops? Section number 8, the pH issues, which starts at 16 minutes and 50 seconds. Do you view pH issues? And he does. When you will listen to his beautiful videos, he answers actually all these questions. Now we are at section number 3. Advantage of a regenerative organic garden covering. What does it do for you? A garden covering does provide moisture naturally, prevent soil compaction, protect against soil erosion, conserve water, eliminate toxic pest control, eliminate dependence of chemical fertilizer, establish a fertile soil layer for future generations, and work for all soils. This is what you will need. You need a small piece of land. Start small and increase every year if you can. If the grass exists as in the picture, do you not remove it? So we have provided here a picture to show you how to lay that covering. And here in this case is actually grass, and you leave the grass on, and it's very well explained in this video that we have shown you above, and it's mentioned again here at 1 hour 2 minutes and 54 seconds, and it goes to 1 hour 18 minutes and 54 seconds. They took about 16 minutes to show you what they're doing here with the covering and the layers they're putting as well. And this is a plant after it has grown from that covering. Going back here for this particular video that we're talking about, which would be this first one, the regenerative organic garden, the covering. And if you want to see just a little bit, a touch of it, this is called the covering as he starts with it. And this is the chips that he uses.
Nowhere in nature where man has not been do you ever see exposed dirt. That only happens when man comes and takes the cover. Everywhere in nature where man has not been, it's either covered with needles and leaves or grasses, but the ground is covered. And the reason is because the ground is a living organism. And as all living organisms, such as ourselves, we have skin to protect us. The animals have fur. Fish have scales. Birds have feathers. And the soil is a living organism. And God has designed it and made it so it's always covered with something. And when you take the cover off, it becomes vulnerable and it gets lost. And this is the thing that amazes me about us as intelligent human beings, how we don't see it, because we've been experiencing it for thousands of years in a negative way. We're all around us, all through creation. Everything's just growing beautifully with no work. And we work hard to fail. When we came to the Midwest here 200 years ago, there was 8 to 12 feet of beautiful topsoil. I mean, gorgeous stuff. And if you've ever flown across the Midwest and you look down at the ground, it's almost scary. It's just parched, cracked, hard, totally desolate. Almost looks like desert. There's 8 inches of topsoil today because it's all blown and washed away, and they're still cultivating. This is not working, and we're losing topsoil. And topsoil in nature, it takes 100 years to build an inch of topsoil. I mean, it is criminal and incredibly devastating what we've done to the planet.
Soil conservation.
So this is a taste of what Paul has to teach you about, and he also refers very often to the Creator, which makes it an amazing study for those of us who believe in God. Just to give you a little taste of it here, this is Paul right here again, but we will stop here to give you a taste of when he talks about God, the way he presents it. It's going to be very short, but just to give you a taste of it. And then we invite you to start this video, this section, by the first video and follow through with it. And maybe you stop and talk about it with the people that are with you. And you can take notes as he talks, because it's very important what he's saying.
I asked the Creator, where do you make the cut? He says, I made a line. See it there? Cut to the line. I love it. He made it so simple for us. And let me show you the effect. You see all these places where I cut the line, how beautiful they heal? Look at that. Everywhere. Everywhere. Everything just totally heals. Look at that. Everywhere. Totally heal beautifully. When you cut, you see when they cut beyond the line, everybody does. You get all these suckers coming out of that place. The wood below where they cut, because the collar can't grow over it, dies and becomes a cavity. You look at my trees, there's no cavities anywhere. They're all healed well because I cut to the line. I love the Creator. I made a line. He made it so simple for us, so obvious, and we don't get it.
And this is Paul, the way he teaches. You will pass hours listening to him because he mingles everything in nature with the Creator and explains many principles in nature. And this is what you will love into this as an agenda of the old path, a garden covering, a regenerative organic garden with a cover, just like the tabernacle. May the Lord bless you and cause his face to shine upon you as you enjoy this wonderful, wonderful teaching of the garden, and pass it on to as many people as possible around the world, so that we are now restoring the old path. This old path that will fight against the fourth revolution, the fourth Holy Roman Empires, which is basically totally contrary to true education, even in the field of gardening.